démocratie et la réputation du Canada dans
and
le
Canada's
monde
reputation
font face à des
worldwide.
menaces
They are
soutenues,
under threat.
coordonnées et financées
This
par
threat
l'étranger.
is coordinated and has
Cette
been
situation
funded
ne
from
peut
abroad.
être tolérée dans notre
This
pays,
situation will not be
et
tolerated in our
elle
country.
ne le sera pas.
It will not be
On Monday,
tolerated.
Cabinet invoked the Emergencies Act to restore public order. Information is now being shared by law enforcement with Canada's financial institutions. Financial service providers have already taken action based on that information. The emergency measures we put in place are being used. They are having an impact, and they will have a growing impact in the days to come. Les mesures que nous avons adoptées
The measures that we have adopted include an expansion of Canada's money laundering regulations and the funding of terrorism. The purpose is to have these apply to social platform funding mechanisms. This will obligate these platforms to declare and report any significant donations to the control center. This ensures that our financial institutions can freeze or suspend the accounts of any individuals or businesses related to the illegal barricades. This also allows us to ask financial institutions to reevaluate their dealings with anyone involved in the illegal blockades. This also allows them to coordinate with our national security forces. This will allow institutions of the federal government, provincial and territorial levels to be able to communicate information to financial services providers. This will enable us to cut off any illegal funding and blockades.
Since Monday's announcement, I've spoken directly with the heads of our major banks and with the director of FinTrack. My cabinet colleagues and I are meeting regularly, very regularly, including with the commissioner of the RCMP, to discuss next steps. Our absolute priority is ending these illegal blockades and occupation. It gives me no pleasure to impose any of these measures. In fact, we do so with great sorrow. But do not doubt our determination to act, to defend our democracy, to defend our economy, and to restore peace, order, and good government. So let me repeat what I said on Monday. If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. The consequences are real, and they will bite. It is time for you to go home. And let me also be clear that we will have zero tolerance for the establishment of new blockades or occupations. We now have the tools to follow the money. We can see what is happening and what is being planned in real time. And we are absolutely determined that this must end now and for good. Before turning to my colleagues, I want to make one additional but unrelated announcement, one that will be welcome news for cities across the country. The federal government will be providing a one-time $750 million top-up of transit funding for municipalities to help make up for some of the pandemic-related operating shortfalls that transit systems have been experiencing. This funding is contingent on two very reasonable requirements. First, that our provincial and territorial partners match the funding we, the federal government, will be providing. And second, that provinces work to speed up their actions to improve housing supply in collaboration with municipalities. Housing is a shared responsibility, and we all have an important role to play. Le gouvernement fédéral fournira aux municipalités.
The federal government will be providing to municipalities a one-time $750 million top-up for transit funding. This funding will help public transit systems to make up some of the shortcomings caused by the pandemic. Public transit, to a large extent, helps to improve living conditions in our communities. Therefore, we must ensure that our municipalities are able to deal with the economic impacts of the pandemic. Thank you very much. I will now pass the floor to Minister Marco Mendicino.
Good thing they brought this step for you, Bill. Good morning, bon matin. Thank you for joining us today. I want to begin by highlighting two important developments that happened late yesterday. Last night in the House of Commons, I officially tabled a motion for confirmation of the emergency declaration under the Emergencies Act. And just a few minutes ago, I spoke to this motion during the debate. Over the next few days, I look forward to a very vigorous exchange with members of all parties at this important and unique moment. Along with the Prime Minister and my ministerial colleagues, we will be explaining to Canadians how we got to this point, why the Emergencies Act is necessary, and where we go from here. As always, we will explain clearly and openly how we're acting in the best interests of Canadians. As well, yesterday afternoon, I can confirm that the Emerson border crossing officially reopened. Emerson is Manitoba's most important link to the United States, a vital crossing point for travelers and trade. And with this significant step, I'm pleased to share that all ports of entry on the Canada-US border are now clear of illegal blockades and open to traffic. But I also want to add that this progress is not set in stone, and nor should we assume that it is linear. Yesterday, we saw a group of illegal blockades attempt to return to the Ambassador Bridge to once again choke this vital trade corridor off, and the impact that that would have had not only in southwestern Ontario, but right across the country cannot be overstated. And it can't be allowed to happen. And that's exactly why we invoked the Emergencies Act. Law enforcement must have all of the tools that they need to ensure that these crossings stay open. But I want to be clear that the very targeted tools that we've introduced under the Emergencies Act are time limited, and they are protected by the safeguards which are enshrined in our charter. This means that whether you are a law enforcement, a person, or any other individual that is assisting under the Emergencies Act, that you are bound to act in compliance with the charter. Every day, some $50 million in trade passes through the Coots Crossing. And at the Ambassador Bridge, it's nearly $400 million. It's no exaggeration to say that these illegal blockades have already cost our economy in the billions. But these aren't just numbers, they're jobs for Canadians. It's about the rancher near Lethbridge who sells Alberta beef to hungry families in the United States, or the auto worker at the Chrysler plant in Windsor who builds cars for markets across North America. We owe it to them and to all Canadians to ensure that these vital corridors remain open for business. At
the heart of this movement is anger and animosity, and too often weapons. At our borders and communities, we must be clear about the seriousness of this situation.
Of course, the Emergencies Act is no ordinary law, but we know that we are in no ordinary time. As former Minister Perrin Beatty said when introducing it in 1988, the Emergencies Act is, quote, an ability to enable the federal government to fulfill its constitutional responsibility to provide for safety and security of Canadians during national emergencies. Keeping Canadians safe is a responsibility that we take very seriously, and it is one that we will fulfill. Thank you. Merci. And I'll pass it over to my friend and colleague, Minister Blair.
Thank you very much, Marco. And Deputy Prime Minister, always an honor and privilege to be with you. Good morning, everyone. Bon matin tout le monde. I'd like to thank you all for joining us here today to enable us and give us the opportunity to provide an impact and to answer Canadians' important questions on this matter. As my colleagues have said, currently all of our ports of entry with the United States are open. Trades in goods and people are once again moving freely. Travelers and commercial vehicles are getting where they need to go, unimpeded by illegal blockades. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners for safely and successfully clearing these vital passages in British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, and Ontario over the past few days. And while we all breathe a sigh of relief, as has Mr. Mendicino shared with you, we know that these blockades could very easily reappear. And as we saw yesterday, as evidenced in Windsor, the intent to harm our economy and hurt Canadians unfortunately remains. I'd like to thank local law enforcement for their swift action in Windsor in preventing another illegal blockade from fracturing the critical economic recovery of this country. The removal of these blockades has restored the strength of our economy. They've ensured that the safe and free passage of goods between Canada and the United States is secure. And most importantly, they have made sure that Canadians are able to get back to work and get their lives back to normal. In Ottawa, we're continuing to see progress being made by the Ottawa Police Service, the Ontario Police, Provincial Police, and the RCMP and all of their policing partners as they work to end the occupation of Wellington Street and downtown Ottawa. Yesterday, Interim Chief Bell stated that officers have been going from truck to truck to advise individuals that they are participating in an illegal demonstration, and they have made it crystal clear that if the illegal demonstrators do not leave, they will face serious consequences. Interim Chief Bell has also confirmed that he is confident that the Ottawa Police Service and the Integrated Command Unit have the appropriate resources, authorities that they require, and a very concrete plan to move forward. He emphasized that this operation will not be considered complete until the streets are cleared, and that peace and order has been fully restored to the good people of the City of Ottawa. To the individuals who continue to participate in this illegal occupation, it's time to go home now. And to those who have children with them, this is no place for children. Take them home immediately. Take them to a place of safety. The Ottawa Police Service and their partners have engaged a planning team with the Children's Aid Society to encourage anyone with children in the area to leave immediately and to take their kids to someplace safe. To the people of Ottawa, I want to assure you, we will continue to work and support with our municipal and provincial partners to make sure that this occupation ends safely and swiftly and respectful of charter and rights and freedoms and upholding the rule of law so that they can get their city back and they can get their lives back. The decision to invoke the Emergency Act was one, as the Deputy Prime Minister has said, that we took with great caution and care. And I will share with you as she did. We approached it even with sincere regret. Regret that this was necessary. But make no mistake, we were resolved to do what was required to uphold the rule of law, to protect Canadians' interests, and to defend our country, our democratic institutions, and the people of this country. We know that it was necessary to give law enforcement and our other officials the tools, authorities, and resources that they require to do the job. And I want to assure all Canadians, we will not hesitate to do whatever is required to protect our ports of entry, to protect Canadian interests from the criminal intent of people behind these blockades, and to restore peace and order in our country. And finally, to the people and residents of Ottawa, I want to acknowledge how they have suffered from threats and intimidation, from acts that were clearly intended to bring the greatest disruption to the lives of their fellow citizens, and indeed all Canadians. I want to assure them that this will end, and that we will be there for them to continue to support them and to hold those who have taken from them the peace of their neighborhoods and their communities. We will hold them to account for their actions. Thank you all very much. Merci beaucoup. I would like to invite people who may have questions of myself and my colleagues. Please proceed.
Merci. On va maintenant prendre les questions des journalistes jusqu'à 11h.
We'll now go to media questions.
From journalists until 11:55, and we'll start in the room.
Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. My question is for you, Minister Freeland. You mentioned in your opening remarks that action is being taken by financial services and that's making a difference. I'm wondering if you can provide any specific numbers on how many accounts, either personal or corporate, are being targeted, and also what type of safeguards are in place to ensure that it's protesters and not simply someone with the same name whose accounts are being targeted and frozen.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I have those numbers here in front of me, and they were reviewed just last night by me and Minister Mendicino, Minister Blair, the Prime Minister, and Minister Lametti, but I'm not going to share them with you right now because operational actions are being taken, and we want to be very, very careful not to jeopardize those operational actions. But I do want to assure you, and through you all Canadians, that action is being taken. We are seeing it, and that action is going to increase in the coming days. It's a good question about what are the safeguards? And there, I really want to assure all Canadians that that is something very much on our minds. That is something that we and law enforcement and the financial service providers have been working on very, very carefully. And that's why I say the use of the financial tools is actually going to increase in the coming days because it was important for us to be sure that safeguards were in place. And I do also want to say that the actions we have taken are emergency measures. Due process remains in place. Charter rights remain in place. And of course, the courts are there, and these will all be institutions that will be there to support Canadians.
Okay, so my follow-up is in two parts then. So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay, so the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen. Crowdfunding platforms and payment service providers have started the registration process with FinTrack. In terms of the specifics on whose accounts are being frozen, you now have the regulations. The financial service providers have those regulations as well, and they, working with law enforcement, will be making the operational decisions. But I do want to say really clearly to Canadians, we have now outlined with great clarity that these blockades and occupations are illegal. It is now time for people to go home, to take their trucks home, and to stop funding illegal blockades and occupations.
Yes, Alex Ballingal with the Toronto Star. Just on the same subject, the warning that you're issuing to the drivers about their accounts being suspended and their truck insurance being suspended, is pretty unequivocal. So I'm wondering if you can say or shed some light on whether to what degree, I guess, the large financial institutions are actually on board with this, and also clarify exactly why you can't share the figures, why that's an operational secret at this point.
The Emergencies Act has compelled financial service providers to take these actions, and we have provided them with immunity for actions undertaken in good faith under these measures. Those are two important facts. The financial service providers have a stake in Canada and the Canadian economy, and they are a really important institutional pillar of Canada. They are, as they are legally obliged to do, collaborating properly and effectively with the RCMP, with law enforcement. In terms of disclosing specifics, all of us had a conversation yesterday with law enforcement about that, and there was a clear view that it's important right now not to in any way jeopardize the very important work law enforcement is taking. And that's why I'm not disclosing the specifics, but let me assure you, those details will be disclosed in due course and soon. And I want you to know it is happening. I do have the numbers in front of me. And I do particularly want people who are participating in illegal blockades and in illegal occupation to know these measures are real. They are being used. They will have an impact. And there is a really easy way to avoid being affected by these measures. And that is just go home, go back to work.
And I think that Minister Mendicino, you mentioned that all the border crossings that have been blockaded are cleared. There's been attempts, I guess, to re-blockade them, and that's been part of the justification you guys have used for the Emergencies Act. But you've also mentioned that you want to lift this emergency declaration before the 30-day limit is up. So if the concern is them returning, what are the conditions you need to see, I guess, as a government, as a cabinet, in order to actually lift this emergency declaration?
Well, first and foremost, one of the conditions is that the blockades are no longer there. And that is one of the reasons why we have been going to great pains over the last number of days to send a very clear, unequivocal message to those who are participating in them, be they at a border or in front of a legislature, including here in Ottawa in front of the Parliament, but equally in the communities and in the neighborhoods where these are no longer just mere disturbances of the peace, where there has been a rampant and flagrant disregard for the law. The time is now to stop and to go home. And you've heard me say it, you've heard Minister Blair say it, you've heard the Deputy Prime Minister say it, you've heard the Prime Minister say it, you've heard yesterday the interim Ottawa Police Chief say it. There should be no ambiguity right now to anyone that is still participating in an illegal blockade, whether it's for some misguided belief that this is a lawful protest when it is not, or for some other more malevolent purpose. The time is to go home. And the invocation of the Emergencies Act is a resort that we came to as a result of the significant challenges that law enforcement using conventional tools had faced for the last 3 weeks. And while we have made progress, while we see that the ports of entry are open right now, I would suggest that at this fragile moment, it's precarious. I mean, yesterday you just heard Mayor Drew Dilkins in the course of a press conference say that there was yet another effort to try and shut it down again. And so, yes, I mean, I think we all want to be cautiously optimistic that we are coming to the end of it. But in the meantime, as a government, we have an obligation and a responsibility to Canadians to make sure that we are using all of the tools in the box. And yes, that includes declaring certain areas as no-go zones. That includes the ability to commandeer the kind of assets that are required to preserve the flow of traffic at our critical infrastructure, including at our borders. That includes choking off proceeds, currencies that may be used to advance the illegal blockade. And in the case of the RCMP, that includes using a very important and time-limited measure to be able to rapidly deploy them so that we can ensure that there is public safety. So, you know, we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. And obviously, it is our desire to see the measures that we have introduced under the order sunset as quickly as possible. But that will be a decision that is taken, again, very carefully on the advice of our officials, on the advice of law enforcement, and what we're seeing and hearing on the ground.
Thanks. We'll take one more question in the room and then take questions from the phone. Une autre question dans la salle, ensuite les questions par téléphone.
Oui, bonjour, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. Ma question est pour vous, Madame Freeland. Oui, il n'y a pas de problème, prenez votre temps.
No problem, take your time.
Sur les comptes gelés.
With respect to the frozen accounts.
Sur les comptes bancaires, oui.
Gelés.
Yep.
Je comprends que vous ne pouvez pas nous donner de noms précis.
I understand that you can't give us specific names or numbers, but could you give us an idea of the extent? Are we talking about dozens of accounts or hundreds of accounts?
Aujourd'hui, on a pris la décision.
Today, we made a decision after having a discussion. That was a discussion with people who were responsible for operations. They would be the ones implementing these measures. And at those discussions, we agreed that now is not the time to talk with Canadians about the details of frozen accounts. However, I can assure you that at this point, some accounts have been frozen. This is an ongoing process. And this process will also be accelerating. And the process will accelerate if the blockades and the occupation continue. You also said that there were some extremist, violent elements in this blockade movement across the country. What concrete evidence do you have of that? Could you share that? Well, this is the information that police have discovered. This is police in Coutts, Alberta. The police have already spoken about details in that area. Other details will also be disclosed by police across the country. As Minister Mendicino said earlier, we do understand that there could be some people who have not understood that these are illegal blockades and occupations. We want to tell those people it's time to go home. However, it's also important for Canadians to understand that there are some organized elements operating here. These are elements from extremist groups, and they are involved in what's happening in Canada. Our government will not allow these elements we will not permit their activities to continue and to threaten our institutions, our democratic institutions, and our economy. Thank you. Now to the phone.
We'll take one more question on the phone and then a last question in the room. Opérateur, question s'il vous plaît.
Thank you. Merci. For questions over the phone, please press star 1 on the device's keypad. Pour les questions au téléphone, faites étoile 1 sur votre appareil. La première question nous vient de Émilie Bergeron.
First question, Émilie Bergeron from La Presse.
Oui, bonjour. Une question pour Madame Freeland.
Good morning. Question for Ms. Freeland, or perhaps Minister Mendicino. It has to do with the debate that we just happened in the House of Commons, and it has to do with the implementation of the Emergencies Act. At the press conference, we've heard that there is still a sense of urgency, and it has been passed quite quickly, or if it will be passed quite quickly in the House. What do you think is a reasonable period of debate that would be fair and sufficient? At what time do you expect the vote on the motion to occur? Thank you for your question. I'll start off and then I'll pass it off to Minister Mendicino. To start off with, I would just like to say that one very important aspect of this emergency measure is its debate in the House of Commons and the vote. We are trying to make use of powers that do exist in Canada. These are powers that are legal and constitutional. In our opinion, in the participation in the House of Commons and this debate in the House, as well as the vote, is something that we believe is essential. Our goal is to protect the democratic institutions of our country. As such, we will be proceeding in a manner that is absolutely democratic and faithful to the law. Now I'll pass it off to Minister Mendicino. Thank you. I think that Minister Freeland has explained it very well. She's explained the process and the tone of the debate that the government wishes to see in the next couple of days. In my view, I think it's very important to participate in this debate. It's a fair and equal and transparent debate. However, we need to explain to Canadians all of the reasons why we must explain why we've had to make use of this last resort. It's not easy. It's a difficult time for everyone. The measures that are included in the declaration and the orders have become necessary in government. They are necessary so that police can take quick action. However, we wish to ensure that it continues to respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Therefore, I do hope that the debate will be able to clarify the government's decision so that all Canadians can understand. Follow-up? My question was about when do you hope that the House will vote on the Act? At what time and when do you think the vote will occur? Do you want it to happen at all costs before the House sits tomorrow, for example? And then turning to the Senate, as they're sitting tomorrow, at what time do you think that the Senate will be able to also vote on the motion? With regard to the last question, I don't know. We don't know exactly when the threats and the blockades will end. However, we hope that will be as soon as possible. With respect to the first question, it's a technical issue, and it has to do with the provisions of the Emergencies Act. However, I do think that it's a matter that will be discussed by the leaders in the House and all the opposition leaders as well. Thank you. Last question.
Au micro. Je pense que c'est pour vous. Vous insinuez depuis des jours qu'il y a
For days now you've been insinuating that there are weapons in Ottawa,
comme on en a trouvé à Coutts en Alberta.
just like weapons were found in Coutts, Alberta.
Ici, plutôt que de faire des insinuations comme vous le faites
Rather
depuis des
than
jours, quel est le plan pour
insinuating,
éviter
could you confirm what the plan is to prevent these weapons from being used if there is an intervention? And how is it possible that they've been able to stay in downtown Ottawa for nearly 3 weeks? There's one clarification. I didn't say we have intelligence or information of firearms in Ottawa. This is an important clarification. Regarding what I said yesterday, as well as what my colleagues have said, there are public reports that seem to indicate that there is an ideological motivation that is extremist in nature. And this is what is behind the blockades. We are seeing similarities in the targets, such as borders. Another example would be the legislature. It also includes other critical infrastructure that the blockades have targeted. There are similarities in the tactics that the groups are using. They're using similar tactics at the border and here in Ottawa. There is also similarities in the rhetoric being used by the groups. This rhetoric is being spread on social media and elsewhere. These are similarities that we all see and are concerned about. Here at the mic, you said that there are no weapons in Ottawa. But actually, my follow-up question is the following. It's about the children downtown. You've asked them to leave. They have not left. Some protesters are even bringing more children to prevent police from taking action. Do you plan to have a police intervention, and what would you do to avoid this from happening if the requests are not working?
Okay.
So, first question. With regard to the presence of children and firearms is an issue for the police. There are differences in how levels of government work. Our level of government enforces law and provides the tools necessary for the police to be able to carry out their duties. This allows police to respond to issues on the ground, and these could be issues related to firearms. With respect to the question about children, this is a very serious issue. We all share a concern in this regard. We all believe that children should leave now. And therefore, that is why everyone in government, and including the police yesterday, have come together in a strong and united voice to say it's time to leave now.